left off with the last video, we identified kidney structure. We also went through the entire process of urine formation, and we pretty much ended right at the collection tubule. So we will expand on that. But right now, what I want to do is go through the rest of the functions for the kidneys, and that really kind of takes a look at hormones because about everything has some type of hormone or enzyme interacting with the functions of the kidney. Okay, so let's start off. First of all, we know that we established that kidneys filter the blood. They take waste out and produce urine. So we've got that part. We also, as far as our functions go, have our red blood cell formation. And this is done through, there's a lot of enzymes that are working throughout the kidneys and with different structures. But this is primarily done through renin, or I'm sorry, erythro. Let me spell this out for you. Alright, erythro being red, or I'm sorry, ER being red. So the erythropoietin hormone is produced in the kidneys, and it's produced in response to low oxygen or hypoxia and reduced renal blood flow. What this does is it goes and it acts on your bone marrow to increase the amount of red blood cells being made. So this hormone directly relates to red blood cells. It's going to produce more red blood cells. And it's doing this because the body senses either one, hypoxia, or a decrease in renal blood flow. So as that functioning unit of the kidneys, that nephron is going to identify when it's not getting enough blood and when it's not filtering enough. Remember our filtration rate is about 15. So if it goes below, then it's going to start producing the erythropoietin hormone, which is going to stimulate red blood cell formation. So that's why it helps with red blood cells. All right. It also plays a huge part in blood pressure. I'm going to explain that. It has things that regulate the blood pressure either up or down. So again, we have red blood cell formation. The next part of this is renin, and it's really important to the blood pressure. It's secreted by a cell in the, and I'm going to spell this out for you. Cell. All right, so renin is secreted by this cell right here. Now this cell is located, as you might guess, here's the column. If you can think back to that nephron, remember we had the nephron, we have this whole jazz. This is your afferent, and this was your efferent. So there is a little part right here that is going to sense when it's not getting enough blood pressure. I also have to note, and this is important for later on, that this controls the rate or how much is going through. So if it can tell that, hey, I'm not pushing this fast enough, it will increase or decrease the amount of force. Now it's kind of under pressure all the time. So when it decreases that pressure, more fluid allowed in. But we'll get to that in a second. So your renin is secreted by your cell in your glomeruli. It's released because of low renal perfusion, which basically means the amount of blood flow going through is too low. It also acts in response to low blood pressure, low ECF, low sodium, or way too high of a sodium. So let's sum that up. So renin is produced because of a low blood pressure, a low sodium, or too high of a sodium. Also when your renal we'll just call it renal blood flow, but otherwise renal perfusion is too low. And when your extracellular fluid is too low, so the amount of fluid in your body, when it's too low, renin is produced. As you might imagine, this is going to increase the amount of fluid by preventing some type of urine secretion. Okay, so let's go through this. And this is one of those wonderful enzymes cascades that I love, just like the clotting. So basically it starts off as angiotensinogen. Angiotensinogen is in the liver. All right, and remember I told you that the liver and the kidney communicate in a variety of ways. One of them was, if you can remember back to the breakdown of protein. So when protein's broken down, that's where we were getting that bun level from, the blood urine nitrate, which is a byproduct. Basically, is that off your screen? No. Basically signaling whether or not the renal system is working. Okay, so here we go. Angiotensin is produced by the liver. I'll draw your liver. Alright, so there's your liver. It is converted by renin. And that's, of course, coming from the kidney. Alright, so angiotensin is secreted by the liver because of low blood pressure, low renal perfusion, low extracellular fluid, low sodium, or too high of a sodium. Anything that has to basically, hey, I don't have enough fluid going through my body. So angiotensin, tensinogen, is produced by the liver. Renin, alright, which is produced by the kidney, changes this. Alright, so it changes it to angiotensin. Let's see if I can spell this right. Angiotensin 1. Alright, so it changes it to angiotensin 1. From there, and again, like I told you, it's one of those enzyme cascades. From there, it's going to change it from angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. As a side note, this is a vasoconstrictor. Alright, so angiotensinogen produced by the liver. Alright, it's changed into angiotensin 1 by renin, which goes from renin or angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. And of course, this was changed by your ACE. Your ACE is yet another enzyme. It's your angiotensin converting enzyme, and I'm not going to write all that out, but pretty much it's in the lining of your blood vessels, and specifically your lungs. Okay. Wonder why that is. Let's go through that. All right. So last time, angiotensinogen produced by liver. All right. It changes to angiotensin 1 through renin, which again is changed to angiotensin 2 by ACE. Okay. And again, ACE is in your blood vessel lining and your lungs predominantly. So just think about lungs. That's important. Think about your lungs. All right. So from angiotensin 2, I want another color. From angiotensin 2, we are going to get the stimulation of aldosterone. Hopefully this is still on your page. Of aldosterone. Alright, so aldosterone is from that adrenal cortex. Again, the adrenal gland sits on top of your kidneys. And of course the cortex, like the core or outside crust, is the outside part of it. Okay, so aldosterone, is secreted by your adrenal cortex, okay? And this causes the retention of sodium. What happens when we retain sodium? We retain water. It's like eating Chinese food. Alright, don't do it, ladies. Alright, so it retains sodium. If you remember from the last video, I said that pretty much everything, any hormone or enzyme or anything that needs to control the amount of fluid of electrolytes or change the amount of fluid of the body is done so in those tubules. Those tubules are going to go through and pick out and select what to keep and what to throw away. So when I want to retain sodium, I'm going to make those tubulars impermeable to sodium. That means sodium's not going to come out of the tubules. And that pretty much means, or I'm sorry, it's going to stay in the tubules, and that's going to turn into urine. And so I want to keep it. I'm going to push it back to the main flow so it can go back to the body, okay? So anytime to change the permeability of those tubules, then you are going to change what you're hanging on to, all right? And if you're confused by that, watch the first video. All right, so it retains sodium, which of course is going to cause a retention of water, Chinese food. And finally, of course, the result, which we wanted to get to from the very beginning, was the increase in extracellular fluid. So, what happens when we increase fluid? We increase pressure. What happens in the body? Pressure is represented by blood pressure. All right, so I increase the extracellular fluid, thus increasing my blood pressure. Now, if you have too much of this renin stuff or too much of these other things, and you get too much of it, that's where you get into hypertension or prolonged high pressure. Okay, so let's go through that one more time. And I'm going to try and find a little way of remembering this, but we'll see how I do here. Angiotensinogen changes into renin. All right. Or I'm sorry, angiotensinogen produced by the liver is changed into angiotensin 1 by way of renin. All right. And then angiotensin 1 is changed to angiotensin 2 by way of ACE. All right. So we have angiotensin 2, which stimulates your aldosterone. And of course, the end result is we retain sodium and increase the extracellular fluid. That is your wonderful enzyme cascade having to do with renin. So, as you can see, the kidneys are very important for blood pressure. And I'm just going to put renin in parentheses because there's other ways that it affects blood pressure, right? Or specifically increases blood pressure here. Okay. The other one is the prostaglandin. Now, if you remember prostaglandins, we were talking about that when we were talking about nociceptor type pain in prostaglandins and prostaglandins being responsible for pain. But that's not what we're talking about here. In the kidneys, the prostaglandins are made in the medulla. Remember, middle medulla. All right. And they cause vasodilation. Now, so prostaglandins and in the liver, in the liver, it's stated as like 1 and 2, but just so you know. So prostaglandins, as far as the kidneys go, in relation to kidneys, because again, it's all over this, but in relation to the kidneys, what it's going to do is it's going to cause vasodilation. Okay, so it's going to increase vasodilation. It's made in the medulla. Medulla oblongata. No, it's the medulla. Alright, it's made in the medulla of the kidney. And it increases the renal blood flow. Okay, so from vasodilation, it increases the renal perfusion, or aka blood flow. Do you remember I said that the afferent atrial that goes into your functioning capsule? Let's start that out one more time. So here's your capsule, your Bowens capsule. Inside you have your glomerular filtration. All right, so this is your afferent and your efferent. And again, if this is confusing you, go back to the first video. Efferent. All right, remember I said this is kind of under pressure all the time. What it's going to do is it's going to vasodilate it. So what's going to happen? More flow of blood will go into here to be filtered. Okay. Now, it promotes. Now it does several things. So this is pretty potent stuff. All right. So not only does it make vasodilation and make it so that it increases the amount of renal blood flow, but it is also going to cause the excretion of sodium. And of course, what follows sodium? Water, right? Okay, so it promotes NA treatment. It also has systemic actions on just the overall blood pressure. Okay, so if I'm decreasing the amount of water, because of course water's going to follow sodium, so if I'm decreasing the amount of water and I'm creating more flow through my veins, reducing the amount of resistance, then what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to reduce my blood pressure. All right, so by doing this, it's going to decrease the blood pressure. Also, it's doing this because it's decreasing the amount of fluid, so it's also going to decrease that fluid, which results in a decrease of blood pressure. Okay. And if this is confusing to you, watch the one about blood pressure. All right, I want to also hit on two other things here. So we have blood pressure, and then we have blood pressure again as it relates to PGs or prostaglandins. All right, do not forget we have our antidiuretic hormone working too, antidiuresis. All right, so antidiuretic hormone, again produced by the posterior pituitary, is going to make it so you so that you either do or do not excrete more urine. Also, the result of that entire prostaglandin system was you're going to have that in total body increase of fluid, or a decrease of fluid. All right, so we have PTH. I just want to refresh this since we're talking about hormones. Parathyroid hormone, obviously excreted by the parathyroid. It has to do with trying to increase our calcium levels, and it does that by breaking down bone. But as it affects the kidneys, it is going to prevent the excretion of calcium, so it's going to retain calcium. All right, so that we can get those calcium serum levels back up. So that's PTH, parathyroid hormone. You have your antidiuretic hormone, which is going to affect the amount of urine output. So if you are intoxicated, besides the fact that you're drinking tons of fluid, the other thing is that antidiuretic hormone is no longer being produced. And because it's no longer being produced, you have to pee tons more. So that's why you have to go to the pee all the time when you go out drinking. Just so you all know. All right. Now, PTH and ADH. Our last part of here. Oh, also ANP. And I want to go over that entire thing because I am not familiar with it. ANP. And that's your atrial. What does atrial mean? Well, it means top, but anyways. Natriuretic peptide, aka ANP. So basically what this does, and you're going to have to really focus on that atrium, but basically what it does is it senses when there's too much fluid with the heart. Okay, if there's too much fluid in the heart, then it's going to be a lot of pressure on the heart, and that's never good. That's called congestive heart failure. But basically, it's going to sense when there's a distension from the heart, and again, distension, we're blowing something out big because there's so much fluid in it, and it is going to cause the excretion naturally of sodium. All right, so sodium is we're going to get rid of sodium. Of course, that means we're going to get rid of water. All right, and it inhibit, if I can spell it, inhibit ADH, which I just told you, antidiuretic hormone. So it's going to affect your antidiuretic hormone and your renin, which, if you can remember back to renin just from a second ago, is going to increase that extracellular fluid. All right. It's also going to relax, and that's why I went back to that afferent atrial. It's going to relax that afferent atrial. All right. And by doing that, I'm going to increase my glomerular filtration. So what does that mean? You're like, why is it increasing all of a sudden? The reason it's increasing is because if I can put more blood through the filtration, I can produce more urine. Okay, and it's going to control renin, and it's going to control ADH. So that way, we've got like 4 different things working here to try and get rid of fluid away from, in this case, it was the heart that's unsit, but to try and get rid of fluid. And what you end up with is tons of urine production. All right, so that is all of the functions of the kidneys. It has to do with extracellular fluid, blood pressure, red blood cell formation, obviously excretion, and hormones, and getting rid of metabolic waste. It also has acid and base balance, which of course is managed through the tubules. And that's going to sum us up for functions on the kidneys.